Hello, welcome everyone. I hope you can all hear me perfectly. My name is Dominika. I'm the curator at WMA, Wirtualnym Muzeum Antropocenu. And today, for our Artist Spotlight event, I have Nino Memanishvili with me, who's going to talk about her work in the context of the Anthropocene, what inspires her, and about some of her other projects. First, I'm going to introduce her, and then at the end, we're going to have 10 to 15 minutes for questions. So if at any point you would like to ask some questions, just put them in the chat, and then we'll answer them at the end. So Nino is an artist who works in a variety of media. By choosing mainly former solutions, Nino often creates works upon which thoughts have been developed and manifested. Her artworks are focused to visualize reality. With her works, she attempts to dissonance the form and context. In short, the lacks of clear references are key elements of her work. By investigating the visual language, she formalizes the coincidental and emphasizes the conscious process of composition that is behind the seemingly random works. The thought process, which are supposedly private, highly subjective, and unfiltered in their references to the dream worlds, are frequently revealed as assemblages. Her works directly respond to the surrounding environment and uses everyday experiences from the artist as a starting point. Often, these are framed instances that would go unnoticed as in their original context. By experimenting with various processes, she makes work that deals with the documentation of events and the question of how they can be presented. The artist tries to express this with the help of different forms of artistic mediums, but not by telling a story or creating a metaphor. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
If perhaps, as you are aware, or if someone has already seen, I submitted 4 of my photographs in this exhibition, and these are black and white photographs. With this, I wish to highlight the dominant influence on climate and environment. These are works like former bread factory, and with this I wish to highlight the very negative influence of industry. Beans is my second work, and with this I wish to highlight the overconsumption by humans and perhaps some not very effective methods of recycling of wastes. My third work is cables, and perhaps with this I wish to show that technological environment and its very negative effects, of course, with some positive sides, but still I think that it's too much. And finally, my first work is dystopian suburb, and some kind of this building boom, that are these new buildings and not quite attractive, at least in my country, as there is no space left at all, and this is kind of getting really very crazy. Looking from my point of view, as developed we are becoming, and more developed the technologies and industries are becoming, more damaging is all these effects. And due to fact, we are perhaps facing really very difficult time when there is terrible results regarding climate change, and even the COVID outbreak, which is perhaps has more in common with humans' not quite responsible attitude. And throughout all this period of time, like we live, we consume goods, and not quite often think about all those actions which have very negative influence on Earth. So this is really what truly matters for me, and this is perhaps what I wish to highlight in this exhibition, and maybe try to give some little contribution to bring the awareness.
Amazing. Can you talk a little bit about how the process, like how you found those places and what even prompted you to go there to look for those visuals?
Perhaps you mean how I worked on this material, perhaps, if I understand you correctly.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't need to go anywhere. Like it's not like that you are exploring some certain fields or you are going to special places, for example, to take picture. It's like you are, for example, walking in the street and it just happening in front of you, and for some reason you are just becoming angry. And even when you try, for example, to something to someone, unfortunately, it's not quite often that you are able to explain to certain people the root of the problem. And they are always like saying that it is good for economy, for example. And I can give an example on my country, what's exactly happening in Georgia. Government is backing the construction of dam on one of the rivers. And unfortunately, there wasn't made necessary studies. And as it turned out, and as scientists are speaking, this is really very dangerous. And actually, it is not quite good. And to start the construction of that dam, and people are on strike for 140 days, and they are opposing this construction. But unfortunately, government is insisting that it is good for countries' energy and for countries' economy. And as I think, and most some people living in Georgia are thinking the same, that they are obsessed with money. I do understand that we need this development and we need to support economy, but we at the same time should make the decision whether they are effective in long term. For example, if you are going to face very huge problems and crush of ecosystem in long term, I don't think that if there was some type of profit yesterday, for example, this makes this whole process good. So I really hope that people who are protesting this will reach final, very good decision. And I very much hope that the construction of that dam will be prohibited, or I don't know. So it's really very important. And if a particular artist or photographer can show in their work issues like this, and more people will become more aware that when making even everyday decisions, it's necessary to think whether it's worth in long term.
Right, as you're saying, those decisions should be, especially at a moment in time that we are now, where we're very much aware of the climate change and what all the industries and overconsumption and mostly abusing the resources that we have is causing for the planet and for the environment, especially in smaller communities.
Yes.
It's insane to think that still the profit is the driving force behind all the decisions that we're making, but yeah. And they should be done, like those decisions should be done, like, you know, projects like that should take into account sustainability and long-term goals, especially if one of those goals is improving the economy, because like, you know, if the climate collapses entirely, if the community collapses, like you're not going to have an economy because you're not going to have the people who live there.
Yes, that's exactly, and unfortunately, no one wants to think about that. And definitely, this time, our time, for example, has its like very advantages in point of that more could be done. Like we are protesting, for example, we are creating different artistic works highlighting climate change and the serious threat behind this, but I'm personally left with the feeling that very little is done. Actually, like speaking is already very good, and it's really good that we are, for example, having this conversation, but I not very much see that it is enough, and this makes me really very sad because I do wish I could do more, but unfortunately, it's not enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's like, it's important to remember that as an individual, there's only so much you can do. And you, of course, want to always do more and be able to help more. But sadly, at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at all the statistics and everything, like the biggest polluters and the biggest contributors to all the harm that's happening are massive companies that
Yes,
love to greenwash their marketing and talk about like, oh, look at us, we changed our logo to green, so it's good, right? Meanwhile, they're, you know, drilling
and
oil or something. It it's ridiculous. Or like the fashion companies, like with fast fashion, it's like, yeah, we have this amazing green, you know, sustainable line, but we
fashion
also have 12 collections a year. Which
they are like big
absurd.
city, like fashion industry especially, and like I see somewhere like a graffiti, like make rich pay for COVID. There was lots kind of slogan, and perhaps it was very much like close to reality. Like just one guy decided to write this somewhere in the street on the wall, like make a rich pay for COVID, and it's like all those side factors which we are facing, like, and the fact that the amount of people died and so on and so on.
Yeah, it's happening all over the world, but I feel like we as a society are starting to notice it more and more and express our anger about it, and, you know, displeasement, and just like being like, no, like we actually don't want it that way. So I think, like you said, like just talking about it is already good because we're spreading awareness and making people think, which is what we're trying to do with the museum. It's like that's at the core of our work, to bring attention to those issues and, you know,
Yes,
show that like it's already happening, it's already all around us. And
yes,
the beauty of our museum is that we exist in the virtual world. So
yes,
in the process, like we're not creating that much more waste, except for the energy we're using to access it and
yes,
do the work. And it's accessible from anywhere in the world, which gives us the opportunity to, you know, for to talk
to educate themselves, for example.
yeah, to include artists from anywhere in the world, and to bring that awareness to other places. So like before you said about the thing with the dam in Georgia, like I had no idea that was happening there. And actually similar things are happening in Poland, which is crazy to think about, that it's all happening at the same time.
And you know what, when for example, if you start to like with local person, for example, start to talk about this, and like you will talk that about the negative factors, there could be moments that you would be mocked, like, are you crazy? Like, you are weird, like strange what you are speaking about. It is so good for, like, people will have some kind of work, and what is most important, that's not even local investor. It's like some guy from foreign country. And I really didn't wish to start like someone is really interested to make money somewhere on the minimum waste, for example, and those local people, mainly people who are living in these nearest areas, are the like direct threats, because there exists such possibilities that this river could get crazy one day, and there wouldn't be any possibility to stop this huge wave. And if there won't be left anything, I not very much see the point, honestly saying. But very little people wish to understand this, not to speak, like governments, they are like, they don't hear as if anything at all. So it's really very bad.
Yeah, but I think it's a slow process, but just like by gauging at how massive of a response we had to the exhibition, to like with artists submitting works and like people visiting it, I think it's slowly changing. So there is a little bit of hope, I think.
And do you hope to have the physical museum, for example?
I don't know. So we definitely want to exist primarily in the digital sphere, but
yeah,
we've been brainstorming how we could bring it slightly more into the real world. So I don't think we're ever going to go fully physical, but we're definitely planning on having some hybrid exhibitions that are placed a little bit in the real world, and then the other part is in the virtual world. So there is actually a place in the physical place in the world that you can go and visit and see. And we're going to partner up with some already existing museums and institutions to do that. So it's not going to be like, we're building this new thing just for the sake of building it. We're trying to use the existing infrastructure as much as we can, because there's not that many virtual museums. Like,
yes,
we're like the pioneers in this area, which is
amazing.
Which is scary and exciting at the same time. But yeah, we can do anything,
because there are people who like going outside.
Yeah.
And well, I have some friends, for example, who like to go into museums and exhibitions when they simply like to go there. Some of them not very much has understanding for what type of exhibition it, like they need to go there just to see people, and maybe it's kind of will be good possibility, for example, when having the physical museum dedicating, for example, the climate change. So unintentionally, it is possible to bring some kind of awareness, and maybe the person who didn't have much like big plan, like going especially for this exhibition, could find something new and exciting. So maybe it will be really very good to have the physical museum.
Yeah, I mean, so I know we're for the upcoming exhibition, which we just announced the open call for.
Yes,
we're gonna have some like mini hybrid elements to it. I can't talk about it much yet,
yeah, of course.
but there's gonna be certain elements that are existing within already existing spaces. So you won't know it's there unless you actually go there. And for the people who are visiting that place, like they'll come across this weird thing from the virtual museum, and that way we're spreading the awareness both ways, right? Like by surprising the people who are coming to us and surprising the people who are going to the other place. So
yeah, like facing certain not quite certain expectation, or having the feelings that you are seeing something for the first time, and it usually has always very good effects. So good luck with that.
thank you so much. We're like starting to work on it now, so it's super exciting. Like I'm so excited about it. So please spread the word about the open call. It's going to be great. But back to your work, do you have any interesting projects that you're working on right now that you would like to share?
Like not very much, but I have like plan. I want to explore the life of villagers and how people live in villages, because conditions, especially in Georgia, aren't very excellent. So I always wanted to do something like this, but due to COVID, once again, like we were like forced to stay at home, and a lot of projects, a lot of plans, unfortunately, we had to stop. So I very much hope that things will be much better, and this summer I will be able to carry out this project as I wished.
Well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you, because
Thanks.
that sounds really exciting, and just by looking at the work that you have in the exhibition, like I can already tell it's going to be super interesting and visually striking. Yeah, so how does, I think you already talked about that a little bit, but was there anything, like, did you consciously chose to engage with the Anthropocene as a subject matter for your art, or did it happen naturally?
Like as I just looked through some of my works, which I like do not have on social network site, for example, yet, like I just was left with the feelings that all my work, or the type of work I'm giving preference, like goes around this same, but I was doing definitely unintentional. Perhaps I just wish to photograph it, and perhaps it was something what I was thinking about, but there wasn't like exhibition or open call like what you did, where you could specifically highlight these important issues and like present exactly this like the industry threat, technology development, and everything together, like so. It was not quite planned.
Okay, that makes sense. But it seems like a very organic way of going about your art and process. We have a question from Olivia. Hi, Nino. Thank you for showing your incredible work. What your process was for picking the images and assembling them to be viewed together?
So, like we already spoke about this, but I tried to choose the fields, as I said, like industry, excessive building, issues regarding recycling, this technological boom. But perhaps I'm type of the person who like prefers not to give certain things in artistic manner, like on plate, let's say so, because beyond like a certain field, I do believe that art shouldn't be an open book for to explain. Just there should be something to think about, and because if there is no given some certain secrecy, or I don't know how to say correctly, like it becomes not quite interesting. Maybe it's not very much directly reflects the same, but more or less it's related. I think so.
That makes sense. She has more questions, but I think you actually just answered the first one. So when walking around and finding your subjects to take photos of, do you have an idea of the theme you want to investigate? I think.
Well, it's kind of general question or particularly regarding the theme.
It seems like a more general one where you approach, like how you approach your work, but I think you can talk about that.
Well, for example, once I went to one Western Georgian city, and mainly these are the like former hotels or sanatoriums, how it was called during Soviet Union, and mainly these sanatoriums like lost their initial sense, and refugees are living there. As I'm not quite sure if you are aware that Georgia does have some conflict regions, and the people who were forced to leave the territories, they live there now. And this was one of the projects I named Remains, for example, and I went there intentionally to make this project and to make the shoots there. Otherwise, I not very much like planning things. I think that regarding photography, something exciting is always in front of you. It's just necessary to have camera with you to capture that important second or moment.
Right. Has this always been the way you worked, or was there something about the theme of climate change that made you change the way you work?
I think that attitude was always like same, but maybe in future more I'm going to think the things that surrounds me or environment. Maybe I will start exploring some particular fields. As I told already that I want to shoot to make the project regarding villagers and their life. This is what I'm something looking forward. Maybe after there will be something I will also plan or try to carry out. So let's see.
Oh, that's really exciting. I really hope that you get to travel to those villages and to take the photos you're planning on, because that sounds like a really great project, and it would be a shame to keep postponing it. But I think once you can safely do it, it's going to be amazing.
Yes.
Do we have any more questions, maybe, from anyone in the audience? Another question. Have you always worked with black and white photographs? Photography, sorry.
No, I love black and white photography. I do have color. I like shooting digital, and I like shooting film. So it's like, I do not have this like I'm only doing this or that. If there will be something new, I'll probably try to do that as well.
That's nice. I think when it comes to art and your mediums, it's always good to keep your options open. I mean, that's how I am personally. Just like, I like to experiment with things. So I understand that. Just like trying to like having your favorites, but also trying to work with other things to see what you like, how it feels, you know, because you never know until you try it.
And I also think that As for example, you are left with the feeling that you are constantly looking for something. This is kind of general feeling. I don't know if it is somehow connected with this existential feeling, but as if you are like expecting to find out something really exciting, and you are always going deep and deep in this artistic exploration. And this is when unintentionally certain things are just coming to you. So I think that you should never stop looking for something as an artist and exploring and studying. And for example, I very much like looking at some other artists' works, and I'm trying to look certain inspiration, or even, for example, when I'm reading book, suddenly I'm stuck with the idea, for example. Maybe it's not very much connected with that book, but I have such feeling as if my brain was closed and suddenly it opened and there are plenty of ideas. So it's like, you can never say like this or that. So
I can definitely relate to that, especially the part where you're doing something and then a totally random idea pops into your head and you're just like, oh yeah, I want to explore that, even though what you were doing is not even remotely related to the idea.
yes.
Yeah, it's I like to refer to it as like my brain just like always running, even though when I'm not, it just like does its own thing.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any more questions maybe? Or would you like to add something, you know?
I don't know, like not, I don't think that I need to add anything. Not.
That's perfectly fine. I mean, you told us really well, you told us about your work, inspirations, and gave some context for your work as well, which has been truly amazing because I personally didn't know that. And that's been incredibly valuable for me. So thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone who came to our event. It's been truly a pleasure to have you here and to talk to you, Nino. Your work is really beautiful, and I mean, personally, the photo of the cables, like that, I think that was one of the first things that I picked for the exhibition, actually, out of all the submissions, because it just captured my attention so much. And I love
You
that.
know, actually, sorry for interruption, like
No worries.
we're summing up, but this location where I shoot this picture, it's like a former stuffing factory.
Oh wow.
And they like some certain guys made there some kind of hostel, cafes, restaurants, shops. They kind of gave some new living to this forgotten space. And like, it is interesting place. And what is good in this particular space, for example, that instead of building something new and like taking this free space, they decided to give a new life to existing building. And I think that it was very wise.
Yeah, I mean, repurposing, right? Like,
Yes.
the structure is already there, so might as well use it if it's not falling apart or posing
Yes. If it is in good state.
anyone, then like might as well just use it. Yeah, that makes me feel even better about my own like choice for the exhibition then. That's
Definitely.
amazing. Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, thank you everyone who came. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looking forward. Bye.
Bye.